So, just out of curiosity, I think my order of favorite is Seventh Victim, Amazing Mr. X, Nightmare Alley. Brian, you said Amazing Mr. X was
Wow.
your favorite. What did you guys think?
I think it would be just the opposite of yours. So it would be
Nice, love that.
Nightmare X and then Seventh.
Right on, right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love that, like three movies, three different people have completely different ideas. That's awesome. That's kind of what brings us together, I guess.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm Brian Foster, and this is the Grindhouse Institute. On each episode of this podcast, Jeremy Floyd and I program a triple feature movie night. Each of the movies share common themes, and we discuss them here. We're happy you could join us for today's block we call Horror Noir. The Grindhouse team once again joins forces with the amazing Instagram account OnlyFilmNoir to watch and discuss three films that fit perfectly within the Halloween season. Not only are these films classic noir, they're also horror films, the best of both worlds. After finding out her sister has gone missing, Mary Gibson leaves the safe confines of boarding school to try and locate her in the sinister Big Apple. Mary soon finds out the truth of her sister's disappearance and uncovers one hell of a secret sect. Kim Hunter must find Jean Brooks before she becomes the seventh victim in Val Lewton's 1943 classic. A lowly carnival worker schemes to obtain a secret code from the sideshow's top mentalist act. Taking his new talent to the big city of Chicago, the great Stanton becomes a phenomenon with the high-class clientele, but will his fame last, or will he become the next sideshow geek? Tyrone Power and Colleen Gray will read your fortune in Nightmare Alley from 1947. Grieving the loss of her husband, a widow enlists the help of a spiritualist with a cigarette-fetching crow to help her communicate with her deceased lover. But what happens when the husband shows up alive, well, and only legally dead? Turhan Bey and Lynn Baree are both beautifully captured by the man who wrote the book on cinematography, John Alton, in 1948's The Amazing Mr. X, aka The Spiritualist. And as a side note, if you'd like to watch this amazing film, please be sure to check out the Grindhouse Institute on YouTube. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for listening to the Grindhouse Institute. Please enjoy.
Molly was telling me about that code you and Pete used to use in vaudeville.
What about it?
Well, I was thinking that if Pete got sick or something, why, I could work from the audience just like he used to.
What do you mean?
You know, if you taught me the code.
Over my dead body, she will. You know what a code like that is worth?
Okay, forget it. I'm just trying to help you folks.
I heard you the first time.
But in my work, I deal with many different kinds of minds. Generally speaking, I think you could say that three types of people come here to see me. The first, a fairly large group, come here to scoff. The second have childlike, credulous minds. They long to believe. They're tired and sad and need comfort.
And the third group?
The third group is those of us who honestly explore the secrets of the outer world. I feel that you have come here today to join that group.
Well, I did want to talk to you about something.
I know. He was close to you last night. And he's close to you now.
Welcome back to the Grindhouse Institute. I'm Brian Foster, and with me as always is Jeremy Floyd. Hello, and how are you?
Before you call me a geek, remember it takes one to catch one.
Oh, wow, that was kind of a combo of two lines there in the movie. That was really good. Jeremy is not a geek. We have learned what a geek is for real in this movie. This was probably the first time I knew what an actual geek was. But yes, we have a very special episode today with a returning, very special guest. Jeremy, please do the introduction.
Absolutely. So continuing our little Halloween House of Horrors here, we decided to go in a slightly different direction and bring in film noir and horror together. And who better to take us through all that than the owner of the best account on Instagram, OnlyFilmNoir, Alex Vlahov.
Hey,
Welcome.
thank you so much for having me back. It's so good to see you guys again.
Thanks for introducing us to these movies.
Yeah.
Oh, hope you enjoyed them. Yeah, keep the chickens away from Jeremy. That is for sure. Yeah, no, definitely. And this is one I was sleeping on the remake. I didn't realize that there was a whole big.
This year.
Yeah.
Like, did we just do that by chance, that there was a remake of a movie and we picked these movies and didn't even realize that this year a Guillermo del Toro production was popping of a remake of this?
We were texting and I was like, this one might be kind of cool because of this. And you guys were like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, no, I'm super excited to be back. Thank you so much. And yeah, great to talk to you guys again.
Yeah, exactly. And glad to have you back. And, it's wild because we were texting about different options here.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember how exactly we landed on the alchemy of these three in particular. But man, did they connect so well
perfectly.
In so many different ways.
Yeah, it might as well have just been these two. The three films, though, we should probably go over that real quick.
No way.
The Seventh Victim from 1943, Nightmare Alley from, I want to say, 1947, and The Amazing Mr. X from 1948, or also known as The Spiritualist. Right. And just to let you guys know, Nightmare Alley is a remake already in the works and already going to be released this year from Guillermo del Toro, starring Bradley Cooper. I believe is the amazing Stanton, I would assume.
Right.
But yeah, it's pretty exciting that we're talking about these. And yes, they went all together perfectly. They couldn't have gone together any better. I guess around this time, mentalists and spiritualists and stuff must have been a real hot topic.
I guess so.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
But Alex, how do we end up with these three?
Oh, it's so funny that you said that. Yeah, there's so many crossovers between them. I just like the range because one is put out by a major studio. You got 20th Century Fox putting out Nightmare Alley. Seventh Victim is RKO. It's their B unit, one of their famous Val Lewton releases. Some say his best. It's my favorite. I like this in Cat People. And then Amazing Mr. X is just like, feels like it was made for $2 by, I believe it was one of the Poverty Row, Eagle Lion. So all together, they're very different films, two Bs, one of the Bs considered great, and then this sort of bizarre box office bomb studio release. But they really do blend together like the best of horror and the best of noir. And also the cinematographers, they got like John Alton and Nick Rocca. Yeah, like it's really...
painting with light. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So I mean, the plot crossovers isn't something that I planned on, especially with the grifters, right? And also like with the sense of lifestyle in the satanic cult or the carnival life, there's also
very similar.
Yeah, and ill-fated love. There's a lot of horror and noir both borrow a lot from the whole German expressionism that started in the 1920s and the silent films. So they're both sort of like, it's almost like an inbred family, The cousins drop at some point, but for a bit there, they really come from the same well of 1920s German expressionism. Yeah, and then it leads to noir and horror as we know it. So to see them together like this is pretty exciting.
The Amazing Mr. X really feels expressionistic. The cinematography in that is striking.
Oh my God, yeah! The shadows and it's incredible.
The light pouring in, and
there are so many shots that could almost be just like a postcard, like a single image. Yeah, they're absolutely beautiful. I love all the beach sequences too in Malibu.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, was that all done in Malibu?
Yeah, most of it was.
It was
where beach crows hang out.
Getty Villa, right?
Oh, okay.
Around that area, yeah. It's all filmed along the coast.
Beautiful.
Yeah, what was so interesting in these movies, and yes, like there's a lot of sort of, con men, which is, very noir, and then sort of like ghost and sort of horror elements, which kind of gets us into the horror aspect of it. But it was interesting, like, how similar these movies came together with, like, they were all just like... about basically a game of religious 3-card Monte for everybody, and everyone kind of in their own ways had their own like a spiritual con that was happening, which it's wild that like there must have been something in the air about that one because all these movies in the 40s definitely focused on that.
Well, one could argue that hucksterism has always been part of the American DNA. I mean, I think Mark Maron, I'm sort of
absolutely.
I'm sort of cribbing a point he would make quite a bit when Trump was president, whether it's a comparison to Barnum or snake oil salesman or other sorts of, you know, multi-level marketing pyramid schemes. Look,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's
Amway.
Yeah, it's inbred into, I mean, Enron, it's inbred into the American history, hucksterism, you know, and these films definitely touch on that. Seventh Victim, a little bit less. That's such a bizarre precursor, especially to, I mean, it's basically Rosemary's Baby in the 40s.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
A little bit more downtown. I think Rosemary's Baby is at the Dakota next to Central Park. This is down by Greenwich Village, so just different neighborhoods, but you know, very suave Satanists. Like, what is it about?
I was gonna say they are definitely well dressed, very polished looking people. They were as well in Rosemary's Baby too. It's just a group of debutantes. Just they seem rich. They seem like they're all powerful, and they kind of run things behind the scenes.
And they're so self-conscious and nervous.
Yeah, but at least in Rosemary's Baby, they seem to be, you know, more earnest in their Satanism. Here, it seemed like they remember how they're like, well, we can just make up rules, whatever we want. We can do this, we can do that.
Yeah.
And like, you know, they were just total hucksters the same way. It's like, you know, for them it was their MLM or their cult or whatever. Whereas I guess with Rosemary's Baby, they were trying to give birth to the Antichrist. So, you know, they're taking it seriously.
Yeah, that was a serious goal there. I love this film. This is kind of like, you know, we've talked about Noir before, obviously, with you on here. But, you know, this one starts out pretty standard noir and then goes into the realm of more supernatural, or I'm talking about Seventh Victim here, sorry. Wanted to start with the earliest film that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it felt like a noir, you know, it felt like a woman, well, in this case, a woman, but going on an adventure, if you will, or an investigation to find her sister, who had disappeared, who was eventually going to be the seventh victim. Spoiler alert! Sorry, it's 1943 movie. I can spoil that, right? I think this is already in the domain. No, maybe not.
I think so.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it starts out with very traditional, but then it goes into more of the scary notes, the horror notes, and I think that's why obviously this kind of works for our block today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a if you Google horror noir, this is often the one that people go to, and I'm actually very happy with that, just because I mean it's such a dark, downbeat film. I mean the ending, I mean that ending, it's sneaking. I mean, sorry,
brutal.
Sneaking a suicide past the censors,
the board. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
How the hell did they get away with it?
Yeah, and I mean it's a blatant one. I mean, obviously they didn't show anything. But the sound that the thud makes of obviously the chair tipping and the noose being tightened, right? Like that's all very clear. And also because the person that said, you know, I want to live one last night, right? The next door neighbor who was terminally ill, who's like, I'm not afraid of dying anymore. I want to live my life. And then that's the next sound you hear in the movie.
Right.
I mean, it was pretty brutal.
It was definitely like a payoff of, you know, Chekhov's noose, you know. It's like,
right. Is that showing the noose in the first act and bringing it back? Yeah. Right. Kind of like the geek in Nightmare Alley, right? Yeah.
No, exactly.
It's got to be, I mean, it's cited as one of the most depressing, if not the most depressing end of classic Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's also, Val Lewton would put in these very highfalutin literary references, which was very rare for the B unit of a studio.
Right.
So, you know,
it's all the Dante stuff.
Yeah, the John Donne poetry, and then also that last character is based on an opera character, Mimi from La Boheme, who eventually becomes Mimi in the musical Rent, which is based on La Boheme. But La Boheme is this sort of ill-fated, plague-ridden, I think it's cholera in La Boheme. It's sort of an echo of Puccini. So that is not an accident. And then it's sort of just shoehorned in there at the end for like the worst send-off. I mean, it was a box office bomb. Audiences did not like this film. And I mean, I get it, but it's also so unique and dark and perfect for Halloween.
Definitely.
No, totally. And plus, I didn't recognize her at first, but, you know, the sort of main character we're following around is is Kim Hunter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I believe this is her film debut.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
The one who doesn't like being ordered to drink milk.
Right. There's something weird about Jean Brooks. She went missing later in life. She died up in the Bay in Richmond in 1963.
Wow.
She was in a couple of Val Lewton films. She's in Leopard Man and this, and then like his like teenage film, which nobody talks about. He made a couple non-horror films that like no one really. Apparently, Apache Drums and Mademoiselle Fifi are supposed to be good. I have not seen them. Those are like the deep cuts.
Neither have I.
Yeah, so there was like a thing in the Hollywood Reporter, I think in the 90s, of people asking like, does anyone know what happened to her? And she'd been long dead. So like, unfortunately, she's great in that big black wig. I mean, she's great in this, you know?
Yeah. The Jacqueline character, God, she looked like Maud Lebowski cosplaying as Betty Page.
I love that. That's great. Did you pick up on the queer subtext between her and her the friend that was looking for her?
I honestly didn't, but I read about it afterward, and it must have been a very touchy subject at the time. But I didn't pick up on that watching it. I didn't read that at all, to be honest.
Well, just watching it, I was thinking she is so invested in the stakes and like begging for the sake for the paladins or the name of the group.
Paladists.
Paladins.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I thought they were the paladins too.
When I heard it at first, I thought they were saying Pilates. I'm like, what the hell are they talking about?
That's where Pilates came from Satan. I knew it. That's why I won't stretch like that. Yeah.
This figure is a symbol of the Pilatists.
It's all clear to me now. So clear.
I thought it would be, but just to be sure, I'll tell you that the Pilatists are a society of devil worshippers.
Devil worshippers?
When Kim Hunter first ran into the Frances character, Frances said something about Noir. Yeah, my dear, we were intimate. I think that's some of what you're talking about there, which is like what they're hinting at, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's her reaction is so strong, and she's so invested that it can't be anything other than a romantic relationship in my eyes and other contemporary readings. And it's just, again, like the ending, censors just totally no awareness of it, which is great. It's, that a lot of the
got away with a lot in this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's like classic thing of, instead of portraying sex, it's like you go towards a window and the wind bursts open and the curtains flutter, or like anytime people are kissing on the couch and there's a slow fade out, it's like the audiences were expected to read the subtext. So like with someone like this must have been even more of a novel film for 1940 audiences. I mean, just like, even if it wasn't, it's just like interesting for this character to exist in this horror film. It's great.
I guess I just thought her saying we were intimate was just her way of saying we were close friends, or we had, gone to the movies together a few times.
For sure. I mean,
for sure.
I think that's like how they got away with it.
Right.
But it's like that's a way to say kind of slip that in there.
See, I'd be a real shitty MPAA board member or whatever trying to rate these films back in the day. Yeah. Hays Code guy.
Enforcer.
Yeah, I am not the good enforcer for the Hays Code. Yeah.
Let's sign you up.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But yeah, I guess other than like the nihilistic part of the ending that people had to deal with, like, I mean, what was so crazy was like just how quickly it was done. The movie was just over. Like we can't there's no more reels. Stop the picture. We're done here.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like ding, ding, ding. You hear that noise and then out.
Yep.
It comes to a real abrupt start.
Pretty effective though.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I mean, that is the end, right?
Apparently there were 3 rules for Val Lewton under RKO, and one of them was that the films had to be under 75 minutes.
Oh,
which is why there's often sort of a just like ending on his. Yeah. The other 2 were that it had to be under $150,000, and then the third was that the studio chose the title, not the plot. So that's why he could write whatever he wanted, which is why the plots are very, 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 very bizarre. Like Curse of the Cat People is barely a sequel. It's like a child's fantasy. Cat People's great, but yeah, his films, I mean, especially when Boris Karloff gets involved. Seventh Victim is like the middle point because he worked with Jacques Tournier. I never quite know how to say the director's name. And then because Mark Robeson edited Cat People and, was so successful, he got to direct a bunch of the other ones. So that's when he directed Seventh Victim. So this is like the middle point before, and it bombed. So that's why they brought on Carlisle for. They actually made a really good one together called Isle of Dead. If you ever have a chance to get that one, that's listed on. People frequently say it. Scorsese's favorites. Yeah.
I've definitely it's like kind of on one of the lists to watch, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, there's like a very creepy moment on a mausoleum. It's also based on a painting. So it's like Val Lewton, very high tone references in his B films for RKO. But no, I'm so glad you guys got a chance. Also, did you catch on the Psycho shower? A lot of people comment.
I was about to mention that one. Yeah. Like how it was like kind of an audition for the Psycho scene, but it was more of a warning than an ending for.
Also, like, can you knock?
For the one shower.
I'm trying to take a shower here. Just don't come in and ask me questions.
Yeah, can it wait just like 5 minutes?
Just give me a minute.
Yeah.
I'll talk about the satanic cult while I'm in the shower. Yeah.
I thought the satanic cult was interesting because they weren't killers, so to speak. They would kill somebody because they were, betraying the cult.
They would certainly justify killing, yeah.
However, that's how they justified it. However, they would never actually take a physical action to kill someone. They had to make them or coax them into killing themselves. And this, of course, there was 6 before her. This was the 7th. But they just, sat some poison in front of her. All you need to do is drink. But they would not touch it. It was like this really drawn out scene where you're just like, is she going to do it? Is she going to take it? Is someone going to throw it in her face? She finally goes to take it. And then her intimate friend, knocks it away. But it was interesting how they handled that.
It's like the guy in When a Stranger Calls. Like he, except for Adrian Barbeau, all his victims, he talks them into killing themselves, type of thing.
No, not When a Stranger Calls.
Or no, what was it called? No, Someone's Watching Me.
Someone's Watching Me. Yeah, same movie though, right? The babysitter killed. Yeah. But yeah, exactly. I was going to bring that up, that it was similar. That you're kind of, making someone do the dirty deed that you can't do, right? So I thought that was interesting.
You hear that is something that appears in Jacobean literature, up to the FBI blackmailing Martin Luther King. I mean, rather than out and out committing assassination or gently encouraging suicide is it's in the Coward Playbook for great villains. It's
Oh, good call.
I thought there was a little precursor to Weekend at Bernie's with the investigator that goes to who's brought on the train between the two guys just kind of sitting there dead. I thought that was funny. Funny and horrific at the same time.
Her husband that nobody knew about, that's the dad from Leave It to Beaver.
Really?
Wow.
I love that little detail.
Hugh Beaumont and Jerry Mathers as the Beaver.
I'm glad you guys liked Seventh Victim. It's in my top 10 favorite horror films of all time. It's great. It's a really good one. It's also, you can recommend it to a lot of people for different things. Like, it feels like an old Universal film that no one knows about, but it's RKO, and it's also noir. It's creepy for people that like Satan, like Rosemary, satanic type plots like Rosemary's Baby. It's has
plus it's a short one. You can get through it easy, right? It's a nice little entry level move into noir, old noir.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, just 2 episodes of episodic TV.
Exactly.
It's so funny. We do this where do you want to watch a movie? It's like, no. And then we'll end up watching 6 hours. Yeah. We could have watched an hour 45. Tequila Sunrise. Not a long movie. But nope, we just watch hours. Yeah.
Watch 12 hours of 30 Rock.
Right. Finish 2 seasons of Sopranos. Yeah.
Right. Squid Game. Right.
Yeah. Alex, you have kind of a background in theater, so I wonder if you appreciated the moment when she was being chased and runs into a troupe of theater actors coming out of there, and they're like, they're gonna kill me, and they're like, yeah, whatever, come on, let's hang out. Not taking her seriously because they thought she was just part of the act.
I love that. I totally love that. When the main character's situation is not being taken seriously, especially by like a troupe of like drunken actors.
Still in their tights and everything.
Yeah, I absolutely love that turn. That whole, there's a moment where they're both behind a corner during that chase. I love that whole final sequence.
This often happens in film noir where the circumstances under which someone's being terrorized are so fantastic and so hard to believe that then you run into someone out of context and they're like, what the hell's wrong with you? It's just, and they can't take you seriously, which makes it even scarier.
And sometimes they end up dead in some,
Yeah,
that's the other thing.
Right.
Please help me. There's a man following me.
I shouldn't wonder, babe. I shouldn't wonder.
Please, I'm serious. Help me.
I'll help you to a beer and a sandwich. Come along, babe. Come along.
Right. I mean, it's so weird that like the studio was like, this is your title, The Seventh Victim. And these films were supposed to compete with Frankenstein, Dracula, right? Like the Universal films. And Val Lewton is like, okay, this is what I've made for you. It's such a bizarre answer that he and Mark Robeson to compete with like The Invisible Man and all these like monster hits. It's just very
Dracula and Wolfman. Yeah, exactly.
Step right this way. Move in closer, ladies and gentlemen. And let me introduce Xena, the miracle woman of the ages.
Should we move on to Nightmare Alley?
Sure, I love Nightmare Alley. It's it's
definitely the biggest budget of the three that we're talking about, like a real studio picture, like you said.
Noticeably bigger. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there was apparently there was a full carnival set built on the back lot of 20th Century Fox. It was like 10 acres, and there was like over 100 sideshow attraction and carnival workers.
Wow.
It has a couple carryovers into real life. Eddie Moeller of TCM tells this story about how real life grifters will use the line, "Are you a friend of Stan Carlisle?" to ask people, "Are you in on the grift?"
That's like a code word?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Code for
very cool.
That's a code worth its weight in gold.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's my nest egg.
Yeah.
So if you're listening and if you see what you think is a con man or a grifter, maybe stay on Hollywood Boulevard, and you can go up to them and ask, "Are you a friend of Stan Carlisle?" And if you get a black eye, I assume the podcast is not responsible for it.
Yeah, wait a second. What do you get us into here?
Don't try this at home.
Yeah, but apparently, he's told the story in numerous places, so it's got to be true. He's told it enough, but it's also kind of old timey at this point. Who knows? But I love grift conman stories. Some of those like David Mamet films. Conman stories are always interesting to me.
Like the House of Games.
Yes, exactly. With Ricky Jay. Yes.
Ricky Jay is great. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He was also in Boogie Nights, right? He was the cameraman.
He is. Yeah, he's great. Yeah, his inside tips when he would appear on Fresh Air. Great interviews. This is another one that had cutscenes. There was supposed to be chicken killing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from the Geek.
Yeah, they didn't show the first geek, right? He was like under the stage, right? Like we just kind of assumed that he was biting the heads off chickens.
So I'm kind of running around in the background and kind of screaming, and
but we don't really see him in geek mode. I hate to say that; it sounds so terrible, but
right.
But this ends up being like you said, you show the geek in the first act, you need it to come back in the third. And the way that, Stanton becomes the geek by the end, it totally reminded me of it, like a Tales from the Crypt episode where, the just desserts are given to that main person that has, all these ideas, nefarious ideas, usually to either steal something from someone, make himself rich or herself rich. And then all of a sudden it comes back to haunt them at the end. And this was a perfect example of that. I think this one really nailed that like horrific ending for the main character.
Yeah. It's like sort of one part tragedy, one part comeuppance. Which,
right.
Yeah, it is a very Tales from the Crypt feeling. But yeah, like the sort of life cycle of people in this life, either the carnies or people doing some of these con games. You kind of start off fresh faced and young and ambitious and really good at the game, and then you get jaded and wise. Then you get drunk. Then you get geek. And when you're at the geek, you're the sort of you've been wrung out completely dry, and you're just a husk of your former self, and you take up your post there, and all of a sudden, like, you just sort of behaving as drunken lunatic is the it is the sideshow or whatever.
Right.
It is interesting, the Tales from the Crypt comparison. Creep Show, the Shudder show, is a bit like that
Sure.
too, where there's like a sort of like a full circle
Mhm.
moral ending where like the person
Right.
gets themselves in that situation. Yeah, I love that's the only thing that he's able to get is the job is the sideshow geek. And that ending with Colleen Gray, the electric woman, sort of coming back to him, was tacked on. So it wasn't even going to have that originally.
Because that kind of gave a little bit of hope, right, to his situation now, right? She was gonna maybe help him through it, or
Exactly.
I don't know, because it was like sort of, I mean, it could be that, and that's an interesting reading. I think it's also, it could just be like, you see the contrast of like swirling down the drain to becoming the geek, and like what Tyrone Power looks like at the end versus what Colleen Gray looks like at the end, you know?
Tyrone Power loved this film. This was his favorite film he did. And he named his plane The Geek. He died very shortly afterwards. 11 years, 1958, but pretty young for someone of that era, leading man. But yeah, no, he was very, very invested in this film.
And it pays off. I mean, he was great in it. And, he every step of that, life cycle of the geek, he played to a T. And you believed every step of it.
Definitely.
Well, it also has 3 great female. I mean, he's fantastic, but like it also has Joan Blondell and Colleen Gray and
Helen Walker.
Yeah, Helen Walker is the therapist, the crooked therapist. That's like pretty rare for like 3 huge female leading roles next to Tyrone Power, who's himself like this like careerist, like manipulative. Like one of the reasons he took the film was to sort of play against his Zorro image, because he'd done a bunch of swashbucklers. He played Zorro. I love this film. People talk about this as though it's like this like neglected film noir gem masterpiece. I feel like some people like it more than me. I really, really like it. It's not, I like stories about carnival life and grifter, but like I do grifting, but I feel like it is a little bit overlong, this one.
I agree.
Still love it.
Yeah, it was good. I did watch it in 2 sittings though, only because I started it too late. But yeah, it was a bit long.
Yeah, no, it's long, and it feels kind of long while you're in it, especially in this film block, because the other 2 movies are less than 80 minutes. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, sure. Yeah, right.
But it does that thing where it's like it pushes the film noir just a little bit further into the drama, and gets you to invest in his dreams or whatever of running the ultimate con or whatever, and becoming a spiritualist and blah blah blah. And while his methods aren't laudable or whatever, like at least what he was trying to do in what he was saying, and maybe this is a con as well, was to give people what they're wanting, right? It's just they want to feel good and like want to feel like their loved ones who had passed on
are still with them,
or are still with them, or forgive them, or whatever it is. Right. And he wanted to give that to them. And that's kind of how he explained what he was doing.
It's a way to justify the con.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps that's all it was.
Yeah.
But everybody does that. I mean, like kind of like you brought up earlier, Alex. It's like that is the American way. That's like this like con for everybody to have something that they sort of believe in and like stake their life around. It's like, everyone has a con they're dying to follow. To avoid becoming the geek themselves. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And, in the sick carnival of everyone's lives, there's something, everyone wants to believe that there's something beyond this nightmare alley that we're stuck in,
There's a really good book called The Confidence Game by Maria Konnikova. I just am now realizing she has the word con in her last name. It's spelled Russian.
Yeah.
It's really good.
She's hiding in plain sight with that one. Yeah.
No, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The word con man comes from confidence man, right? Like it's just someone you have confidence in. So like they're telling you something that you want to hear, which also goes along with like confirmation bias. You know, like looking for what you
confirmation
that you want. Yeah. So a lot of con men, you know, or grifters, you know, what this book says is they're great listeners. You know, they will pick up and repeat back to you what you want, and that is how they're plugged in.
Right.
They, play your wishes and sense of this couldn't happen to me. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you know anything about the guy that wrote this?
The novel.
Yeah, William Lindsay Gresham.
I don't know.
So he was very involved in like different religions. At one point, like dabbled in Scientology. He wrote a nonfiction book about Carney life, I think, having interacted with Carneys, and then wrote this book, which was like his only success. He killed himself in the same New York hotel room where he first wrote, like, I think like the first pages of this book.
Wow.
So there's sort of like this weird full circle thing to his life, and like
Oof.
and then his wife was a poet.
So he went through the life cycle.
Right, I was gonna say,
yeah. He became the geek back in the hotel room.
Right.
His wife also left.
Either the geek or the seventh victim.
It's both of these work. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
No, there's definitely parallels. And he also studied under C.S. Lewis, like Christian, this sort of like writing. C.S. Lewis apparently was like, I don't really know much about this part of his life. I mean, I know Narnia, right? But like, he was like apparently a huge theologian. And so the Nightmare Alley's novelist's wife left him for C.S. Lewis. And there is a famous play and then movie made out of that play called Shadowlands that stars Anthony Hopkins playing C.S. Lewis with this guy's wife. So who was a poet in her own right, led her own life. So this guy was also very interestingly connected to the 20th century and the world of letters, as one would say.
Tying it into the literary world again.
I had a question. Like to go back into the plot of the movie, Stanton kills Zena's husband, who was once the mentalist with her, or her partner. I'm sorry,
Pete.
Oh, it's wood grain alcohol, right?
Well, right. That's what I was going to ask. Was he gave him the wrong bottle of booze, more or less, right? He was going to drink, I guess it was like wood grain, like grain alcohol,
it was like a gin or something that he had.
But and
he thought he was doing that.
So it wasn't a mistake then, or it was a mistake.
It seemed to be a mistake, yeah.
Right. So
I think the audience is supposed to believe that's a mistake.
Right. So until we get later on into when Stanton meets Ritter, Dr. Ritter, the psychiatrist or the therapist, I thought for the whole time that he actually had planned this murder and he was starting his plot right from the get-go. But it looks like he was a little bit more, emotionally troubled, if you will, by what happened. So he didn't mean for it to.
I was thinking the same thing. He was obviously up to something, giving it to him,
right,
in the first place. But his reaction when he found out what the bottle was definitely seemed to indicate that he didn't know that it was there. He didn't know it was the prop, wood grain alcohol or whatever it was called.
He was wrong. Yeah, he made a mistake. Right.
I think it was an accident. Yeah.
It's like Frank's pet chow, the rat poison in the pet chow box. You remember that SNL sketch? Will Ferrell has. You don't remember this one? The guy's name's Frank Pet Chow, and he's got rat poison that he puts in what looks exactly like a big bag of dog food. And the only way to activate
it just says his name on
the
it.
only way to activate, it says Pet Chow across the front. But the only way to activate the poison is to put it into a dog bowl, and it looks just like a dog bowl. He's like, it's just. It reminded me of that a little bit. Those bottles were exactly the same. It's like maybe you want to put the poison in a bottle that looked a little different than your gin, man. Yeah.
But that scene in particular where where he discovers so Zena's crying the next morning over Pete's body, and she was like, oh no, he that's the drunken fool. He drank my prop wood grain alcohol that I set all the, I don't know what you call them, like the little notes on fire for my trick. And that scene was so underplayed. Like score wise, a lot of times movies of this era, film noirs in particular, a lot of them are sort of melodramas, and they sort of Mickey Mouse a lot of the feelings. But that moment, no music whatsoever. It was all just based on like the ambient sounds and what the rest of the circus folk were doing, and then what Stan was doing, right? Checking to see if the other bottle was there and going to hide it in the truck and all these things, and kind of playing it right off of Stan's face, which makes it more dramatic and heavier.
Yeah, and it's surprising that it's Joan Blondell. She was sort of like this wisecracking pre-code actress in a lot of comedies.
Right.
She's great. And I remember
she was really good.
First thing I saw her in was Grease when I was like a kid.
Yeah.
She's the waitress. She's the waitress in the diner.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, so a lot of these. It's so funny. A lot of these like older actors will pop up as they're older in like seminal films. Like Grease is a good example. Rosemary's Baby too, with like Elisha Cook Jr.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a very moving scene. I love Colleen Gray in this. I think that she is fantastic. Very like lithe and like playful, and she's also like in a lot of other great noirs like The Killing, Kansas City Confidential.
Right.
Yeah, the women in this are steal the film. I mean, Tyrone Power is great, but yeah,
I agree.
Joan Blondell, yeah.
No, you're right, and all three of them, are very atypical female roles for this time. Okay, one of them is essentially a femme fatale.
Helen Walker, the therapist.
Yeah.
She died. She didn't live very, very long. She was in Impact, is the noir I know her from, but she died in 1968. So, yeah.
Well, she made it longer than Tyrone Power.
She did.
But the other non-femme fatale parts were also, uncharacteristically for this time, very sort of strong and would like and wise. They would also, be in on all these hustles and cons and everything like that. Colleen Gray's character gave a little more of the sort of typical, sort of 40s female role in that, but it was in the context of her, really loving this guy and wanting to help him,
right?
And
right,
so it was a more, earned, let's say, than sometimes where it's just played as like a foil,
Absolutely. Yep.
And I thought that really came out when she couldn't go through with playing the ghost, right? Of Grindle, yeah. I think his name Grindle.
Grindle.
She couldn't play the ghost of his lost daughter, I believe. Was that what? And she completely screwed that con up because she's like, I can't go through with this shit.
That's the thing is like during that part of the story, it's almost like Sweet Smell of Success, where you're like, oh, yeah, I think he's gonna pull this one off, and like, just does not. It doesn't come together.
But all the while in this part, and I think this goes with what you were saying, he didn't have all the money that he was promised at this time, and thought he did, so he was getting conned as he was trying to further this con. And then that's like where the whole end of the film kind of rolls around, and Stanton ends up where he ends up. But this is, right. The therapist conning him out of all this money that she said she had for him, or et cetera. And it was kind of a mess, but in a really great way.
I mean, if he had pulled this con off, perhaps it wouldn't have mattered that,
he'd gotten his money.
Helen Walker character, rooked him out of the $150,000 or whatever.
Instead, gave him 150 ones. I thought that was hilarious. This is just a bunch of ones.
Right.
Apparently, Cate Blanchett plays the therapist.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh wow.
Toni Collette plays the Joan Blondell
Xena, yeah.
And then that would make Rooney Mara the sort of the Colleen Gray.
But we don't want to forget about the strongman Bruno, who was played by Hellboy himself, Ron Perlman.
Ron
Okay.
Perlman and Willem Dafoe. Yeah. I'm very excited for this.
Yeah.
Let's see if in the new one, Ron Perlman, gives the Stan character a headlock wedding, not a shotgun wedding.
The ultimatum
but a
headlock wedding.
Or the sleeper hold wedding.
I was gonna say, yeah.
He's all he's got to do is tap my hand.
Yeah, he's dying. That was awesome.
That's
so
great.
good.
Yeah, backwoods MMA families, the sleeping hold wedding.
There he is, Molly. Now we get a parson, hey, boss?
Sure.
Come on, folks, let's drink to the bride and groom.
I'm glad you brought that up, though. I think just from watching the trailer, I think the casting is actually spot on, especially if they're remaking this film, right? I don't know if they're going to borrow some from, the original source material. I'm sure they will, but it's definitely probably an ode to this film more than anything.
Well, I think about it like there's how many directors can you name that are allowed to direct whatever they want?
Guillermo's one of them.
He exactly. So, I mean, it's a Guillermo del Toro film. I mean, Greta Gerwig's becoming one of them.
Sure.
Spike Lee has it's always been like, but even then he's had to struggle. Wes Anderson and Christopher Nolan are like, there's like a very rare
Tarantino's one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a very rare breed of, it's not like a superhero film, it's not like a horror film,
Mm-hmm.
it's a director's name film.
Yep.
One can say Ari Aster and Dave Eggers is the horror.
They're getting there, I'd say, especially now. They've got two big successes on their belts. They're gonna go for it now.
Yeah, so this is going to be, the same way that like growing up, like seeing the Kubrick collection DVDs, right?
Yeah.
The white background and the black print, it was like
right.
Holy Grail, right? So it's kind of cool that like the Nightmare Alley, no matter what happens, he had that one Crimson Peak. What was that?
Yep.
Like, he's had a couple that are like not amazing, but like this will always be part of the Del Toro canon, which I love. I'm a big fan of this film. Can't wait to see it. I'm going to be there opening weekend, whatever that looks like.
It's got to be soon. It said it's this year, so there's not much of this year left.
December 17th. Nice. Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one myself.
Are they pushing it as like kind of an Oscar bait film then?
I mean, that would be the same kind of Oscar bait that he got for Shape of Water, right? But this is a remake. It wouldn't really be.
And Shape of Water was such an unlikely Oscar.
Very unlikely. Yeah.
Very unlikely.
So I don't know.
And also kind of a remake. That
Creature from the Black Lagoon.
It started off as Creature from the Black Lagoon, and then they parted ways, and he was like, "All right, fine, I'll do a different one." Just to wrap up Nightmare Alley here, I like obviously in all these movies we're kind of focusing on a lot of con men, and that's sort of a huge theme here, but sort of the reveal of the layers of cons in this one was really interesting. Okay, so we were there for Stan's rise and his levels of con, but the Helen Walker character, the psychiatrist or whatever, we didn't know where that was or where she was on that list, especially when we first meet her, and actually the second time we meet her when it's in her office, and she wants to meet with him. We don't know why. They're kind of sparring and sizing each other up to see how they can use one another, and then she's kicks him out, sees a patient. And then she comes back into her sort of private office, and there's sort of that reveal that he's sitting there in that high back chair, and it also turns out that she had been secretly recording these sessions, So she's a phony, so she's conning or doing something, kind of a blackmail scheme, but the Stan character is now sort of wise to her. But what's interesting is like how the reveal of her like sort of secret recording devices and her hidden panel wall, the record recording system that they had, I think ties into the next movie so well, which is like the sort of crazy house that Mr. X had. He had
awesome house,
sort of the magic castle of just like everything, the rotating table and everything written down, the little, the hidden walls that move in and out.
It's how I picture Guillermo del Toro's house, with like hidden windows and video monitors and
yeah, and a crow that brings you cigarettes. Yeah.
Yes.
I love that thing, man.
The playing with space is definitely active in all of them, and also playing on people's perception, forced perspective. Yeah, that's a huge part of it.
And just as like, okay, so Mr. X is just as phony as sort of Stan as this mentalist, who is just as phony as Helen Walker's character as the psychiatrist. It's like, none of them are there to do what they purport to do.
Right.
But rather they're there to just con people.
Right.
But, the Helen Walker character has these really elaborate tricks, as does the guy who
Alexis,
who you could tell if the movie was just had a little more money, they would have wanted to have Orson Welles play that role.
Oh, but Turhan Bey is such an interesting, like, Turkish, like, anomaly of Hollywood. Like, he got a lot of fan mail, like, beloved, total ladies' man, and then like went back to like Austria, and then came back to Hollywood in the 90s, and then popped up in like Sequest, Babylon 5, and like Murder, She Wrote.
He was dubbed the Turkish delight by fans. Yeah. According to Wikipedia.
It's so funny. That nickname, if you tweeted that out about a Turkish actor now on Twitter, I'd love
Alexis, psychic consultant. Oh.
I see you place me in the same category with fortune tellers, snake charmers, and magicians.
Yeah, no, the sense of sham is a great connective tissue from Nightmare Alley to Amazing Mr. X, also known as The Spiritualist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A favorite film of Quentin Tarantino's, by the way. He just talked about it on Pure Cinema Podcast. They had an episode on like public domain films. And because this is on YouTube, anyone can go find. Yeah, so they talked about their appreciation. I think one of the hosts talked about it, but they, they all were chatting about Amazing Mr. X, and they're sort of praising its qualities.
Yeah.
This was my favorite of the three.
Nice.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Cool.
Absolutely. Yes. This one held my interest probably the most out of it. I was captivated by most of this, and I love. The visuals. I know I brought it up at the beginning, and I just got to bring it up again. I think that this one visually was the most stunning, or the most interesting, especially with just some of these like undershots of like the ones like shooting up through the crystal ball or under the crystal ball.
Right.
Like I thought that was really cool, and the table wasn't there,
or through the mirror, or through the two-way mirror, or whatever.
Yes, yeah. I loved the two-way miror. When the light would change, or the quality of the light would change on one side, and you could just see the one side, and he was, just sitting there looking. And
he was trying to time the twisting of the table.
Yeah,
so they wouldn't notice.
When the one woman almost noticed. She just took she's like, "What the hell just happened?" That's okay. Would she write the question? Yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
I love this film. It was intended for Carol Landis. Have you ever heard of her? Really great actress. She was Rex Harrison's mistress.
Oh.
And she killed herself because she couldn't be his wife. He wouldn't leave his wife for her.
Wow.
Gorgeous, like beautiful pinup sort of type actress. Was like, I think she was actually a pinup. Like she was an inspiration for Sharon Tate's character in Valley of the Dolls in the book.
Oh, okay.
So she was supposed to play the main role, which eventually went to Lynn Barry, who was in like Shock, another good horror noir, which has been
wait. And speaking of Valley of the Dolls, you know who directed that?
Who directed that?
Mark Robson, the director of The Seventh Victim.
Hey!
Come on.
Love
what is going on here? This podcast is amazing. These discussions are so good.
That is fantastic. I just watched Beyond the Valley, the Russ Meyer sequel.
The Russ Meyer one, yeah.
I loved that.
Really?
Oh, that was awesome. I mean, it's horrible, but it's like a great.
Russ Meyer had a knack for the cult status of his own films. It's like they went directly into cult status the second he would make a film.
Yeah, they talked about how like Roger Ebert wrote the screenplay. They were kids given like the big budget, and what resulted is like one of the craziest films. It's a great midnight. But yeah, sorry. Carol Landis was supposed to play the main role, was found dead. She called Rex Harrison. He came, found her, and I think they could have, there's some controversy. They could have rescued her, but he didn't want to have any scandal, so they waited to call. He called his like private doctor, who took a long time arriving. When they finally came, then they called the police.
It's kind of a Breaking Bad scenario.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's horrible. I mean, yeah, what's that famous Hollywood Babylon goes into it? The suicide of Carol Landis. But there's also what Karina Longworth's podcast has covered it. You Must Remember This. She was supposed to be in this. So I always found that this was going to be her like last role, but then, you know. So, but Lynn, I don't know how to say it. Lynn Barry. She's great. She's great.
Yeah. This movie is interesting. It's like, you know, you mentioned the two titles, both of which, unfortunately, are very uninspiring. And
I still don't know what Amazing Mr. X means. Was that said at all?
Right.
He didn't call himself Mr. X, right?
It's pretty vague.
Yeah.
No.
The Amazing Mr. Alexis is really what I was trying to extrapolate from
There's
that.
There's an X in his name.
Yeah, I get it. X is in the alphabet.
But I mean, you know, and you think, okay, Amazing Mr. X, you're going to see like some Tesla coils and a mad scientist or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know, this movie is nothing like that, right? It's like this sort of gothic melodrama, film noir, con movie, and that's shot by the guy who literally wrote the book on cinematography, John Alton.
Exactly.
Painting with light, that is.
Yeah, he did like I got T-Men, Raw Deal, The Big Combo.
Big Combo,
is probably like most famous. Yeah.
And I think he did a ton of movies overseas, right? He was in he worked in England for a long time, and then he shot an American in Paris. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And the movie obviously is pretty low budget. I think another fly in the ointment of watching this one nowadays is that it is in the public domain, and that there are so many terrible, terrible copies of it when it's a movie that looks so gorgeous. Luckily, in a week or two here, a Blu-ray of it is coming out, and they're supposed to have done a really good restoration on it.
A big 4K restoration of it. I saw the preview of it. It looks amazing. Like it's much better than the version we watched.
Yeah.
Which I'm so happy to see that something like this is coming back and being cleaned up like it is, because a remaster of this is all it really needed, in my opinion, to watch as a current viewer, a modern viewer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because there's like smoke through the windows, the cigarettes, the piano, the billowing curtains. It looks gorgeous. Do you know who's putting out that 4K?
Film Detective, I think, is the...
Yeah, it was a weird... I never heard of them.
The distributor?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I love this. This was the new one for me.
Oh, good.
I knew it must have been, because early on, in one of the earlier scenes, there is a ghost sort of attacking this woman, and I know you have an aversion to ghost stories, or at least you've mentioned that on this show before.
Freaked me out, man.
That was a great effect.
It was a great effect, and it turned out, what? It wasn't a ghost, it was a gown?
It was a dress, yeah, exactly. The dress is coming after me. Yeah.
So in that case, it does fit your criteria.
Ghosts I can't handle, but dresses are perfectly fine.
You know what's so funny? I just saw a great ghost film that is like on everybody's top horror film lists. The Changeling.
Oh God, it's great.
Yeah.
It's one of the best.
Man, that was so good. That was a big blind spot for me. So I'm coming around to
talk about a gothic melodrama like that. That kind of fits right in there. Yeah.
So good.
Are you the child killed by the coal cart?
No.
This movie, I love the most out of the three. Obviously, I mentioned that before. But the reason being is because it really nails all of the things I love. One of them being magic. The one investigator was like a professional, or used to be a magician, or said that he once did it. So that's how he could kind of find out, or he could see through the con.
He had such like interesting coin tricks.
Exactly. So he had the coin tricks. He had the card trick.
The little the cigar thing. It was like almost he had these like old-fashioned fidget spinners.
He was
for
awesome.
a magician.
Yeah,
You know?
it was the kind of guy that would carry a fake, coin, a giant coin in his pocket all the time just to do a trick, like when he was in public, just if he had the opportunity to. But I thought that was interesting because you have, someone that's playing this con against this woman, a really well done con, really, with the audio equipment and everything else that's like set up in this house, everything. And then you've got this guy's, I'll figure these guys out, and he couldn't figure out Alexis, right? Like even when he tried to search for the lever that would move the chair
latch,
and get him through, he couldn't find it, or he didn't have enough time to find it. He almost found it, but it was just really interesting to see a professional like magician or someone that understood the whole con around it. He still couldn't thwart Alexis's, talent or whatever, if you will. But I thought that was really interesting.
100%. Love that detail.
Yeah.
Love when the detective has like any scrap of it, like a personality, and the fact that it ties into magic. Yeah, it's a great. Yeah, I'm so glad that they included it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but knuckling the coin. Yeah, great little details.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting, like the ending. I thought was better than I thought it was going to be, and just sort of, again, I think kind of like Nightmare Alley, like the layers of the con got so interesting, especially toward the end when we start learning about the supposed dead husband, and what he's up to, and how he's kind of roped Alexis into his con and everything else.
Right. So he was trying to get Alexis to marry into that family as well to get the money, I would assume, right? It wasn't that his main goal, because he already died.
Yeah.
So now I needed the next one to marry the sister or the next one in line.
And they didn't. It wasn't explicit, but there was this idea that essentially Paul, the dead husband, had killed his first wife and got rid of her body that way, and it was supposed to be his body that was charred in the wreck.
Right. And before DNA testing, just charred bones in the desert.
Yeah.
If they would have found it, it just would have been a John or Jane Doe. Yeah, it's very eerie what happens off screen in a lot of these films.
Right.
What are you so startled about? You're used to raising the dead, aren't you? Although I guess with me it was a little easier, because I'm only legally dead.
I was kind of invested in the little melodrama of like, oh, is she going to marry the lawyer who should have been played by Phil Hartman? And then, but once that gets derailed, when she meets Alexis and like no longer wants to deal with this guy, there was sort of like maybe a B plot that was missing. Or maybe it got cut out in the editing room to get it down to 77 minutes or whatever.
The stuff with the sister feels like patched together. I normally don't love the precocious younger sibling character in a lot of classic Hollywood films, but there is this one little great line where, she's told like, have fun, don't stay out late. She's like, you can't do both. I thought she's given a couple good lines in there,
Right. And what a contrast to the little sister role in this one is sort of typical of that era. But what a contrast the little sister role was in Seventh Victim.
Totally, 100%. Going out searching for her. Yeah.
And sort of, being an active character and instead of a passive one. I guess in this one she's also kind of an active character, but toward the middle of the film.
Well, I also find that they also come from a certain amount of like privilege, I suppose. Out in Malibu,
they live in the Getty Villa, so yeah.
No, exactly. No, it's by the way, you guys have been to Point Doom, Malibu?
Sure. Yeah, got married there.
So have you climbed the rocks in front of it and been to the secret little cove, Pirates Cove?
No.
Yeah. So next time you're in Malibu, there are these rocks. Just go over them. They're very easy to go over. There is it's inaccessible from the cliffs above.
Mm-hmm.
It's where they shot the end of Planet of the Apes.
Oh, cool.
So,
yeah.
Is there a big Statue of Liberty head there?
The Statue of Liberty was put in there in post.
Oh, that wasn't really there.
Well, the summer it was released, a bunch of teenagers made a local one.
Oh, nice.
So there's one, but this beach is totally private. It used to be a nude beach in the 70s. Yeah, Pirates Cove. It's by recent Malibu discovery. People kind of know about it. People kind of don't. but highly
All
recommend
right.
visiting.
Cut this part so that we can take advantage of this.
Now relax. Let your mind be free and receptive.
The Spiritualist is such an old-fashioned title. I mean, calling something spiritualism, God, that's like the Civil
Mentalist
War.
too. Mentalist is what the kind of has turned into, psychic readings or psychic readers or mediums, things like that. Like this is, I don't even think they use the word medium in this. And Alexis is conducting a seance, and they don't even use that term. So I don't even know if that was like later on, but yeah, spiritualist, mentalist, those are old terms for the same profession.
And very relevant. I mean, with tarot, I mean, there's like a, sort of an occult shop near me here in Los Feliz.
Oh, you mean tarot?
And,
tarot cards?
Yeah.
That's what they call them. Yeah.
Tarot cards, which will help you achieve total recall.
They're back. I mean, people are obsessed with them. People are obsessed with them. And, so we're just as gullible as we were when this film came out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What kind of deck is this?
This is the tarot. Oldest kind of cards in the world. Pete says the gypsies brought them out of Egypt.
I think I told you guys earlier when we were texting, I had an interesting anecdote about The Amazing Mr. X.
Oh, yeah. It was as a personal connection to.
It's more of like a 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, but something like that. So a couple episodes ago, we had a buddy of mine, Patrick Cady, on. And he's a cinematographer and director, and obviously he's read Painting with Light. And so I was like, hey, have you seen The Amazing Mr. X? And he was like, no, that's kind of been on a list. I've never seen it. I was like, well, you should, because it looks beautiful and it's amazing. I mean, that's what the title says. And he was looking into it, and he was like, okay, because he has these resources to screen prints of these movies in his backyard. And he was checking around with some of his friends who have prints, and the friend who he normally borrows prints from is a director named Tim Hunter. And Tim Hunter happens to have a good copy of this, and has a lot of interesting anecdotes about the movie because his father wrote it.
Oh my God!
Ian McClellan Hunter.
Ian McClellan Hunter, yeah, I'm seeing that. No kidding.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So there you go. Small world.
Awesome.
What's crazy is, okay, so his father, Ian McClellan Hunter.
River's Edge. I know River's Edge.
Yep.
Yeah, he did some great movies.
Yeah. So Tim Hunter, wrote and directed River's Edge, and every show you've sort of watched on Prestige TV, he's probably directed one of those episodes. But his father, Ian McClellan Hunter, was a writer, and he did a lot of fronting for a lot of blacklisted screenwriters,
like Trumbo,
including Dalton Trumbo,
yeah,
from whom Ian won the Oscar for Roman Holiday because it had his name on it, but Dalton Trumbo was the writer on that one. And in the 90s, when the Academy asked him, hey, can you just give us that Oscar back that we gave to you accidentally? And he was like, no, screw you, it's mine now.
Come and get it.
Yeah. From my cold dead hands.
Exactly. No kidding.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Wow, not giving it up.
And here I thought you were just going to tell us that you had some creepy portrait of yourself staring down with a little light on there, just like in the movie.
Well, I do have that.
Yeah,
that's no big deal.
Yeah. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
I was hoping it was a connection to either someone involved in the making or that like crazy nice mansion of like, my aunt's great cousin lives there, like, we take tours, like what, like, but that is awesome. That is a really cool, that is a small little universe.
Yeah, so wild. I mean, and again, it's just, I had never seen this movie, and I was excited to chat with Patrick about it if he had seen it. But then all of a sudden there were all these other connections.
Wow.
That's hilarious. Love that. No, it's it was one of the ones I wanted to, because I started this horror noir. I did some last year. I did some of the big ones like The Bad Seed, Cat People.
Yeah.
And then I posted about Seventh Victim under Queer Noir over for Pride over summer. and then I had done Nightmare Alley, but I hadn't done Amazing Mr. X. So so I was like very excited to talk about this. And the other one that I know we almost did, we were so close to doing. I'm so glad we did Amazing Mr. X because of this connection. I mean, that's amazing. If anyone listening, or both of you guys, Curse of the Demon, aka Night of the Demon from the 50s, it is great. It is Jacques Tourneur. Absolutely fantastic.
I thought you were going to bring up the De Niro one, the was it Lionheart or
no
Angel
Heart,
good,
yeah.
Says
Angel
you.
Heart's good, but his name is Lou Cipher, and
Louis. It's Louis E. Cipher. It's like it's so on the nose. Yeah, Jeremy poo-pooed that one, so hopefully we'll be able to watch that maybe when we're going to do like Devil's Advocate and another bunch of maybe Rosemary's Baby with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do like what is it like? What's the one? Serpent in the Rainbow.
Ooh.
You can do like Hollywood interpreting what is it?
Voodoo Satanism.
That actually is on a, at least penciled in as a block of like on-screen depictions of voodoo.
He says penciled in, but there's like just mounds of text messages and emails that just have like smatterings of different movies.
Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do this. Let's do that.
But we could also do this and put this with this.
Oh wait! But if we do this one, we can go this way. Exactly.
Love that.
So Alex, if there's anything you'd like, people to find you online or how they can follow you, things like that, if you wouldn't mind giving some of that, that'd be great.
OnlyFilmNoir is my Instagram, and that's what I post a lot on. I try to tie things based on what I'm watching, like the Criterion neo-noirs I was posting a lot of recently, but also horror noir for the season. And you can look out for my writing online, Alex Vlahov, OnlyFilmNoir. That's about it for me. Yeah, thanks guys so much for having me back.
Thanks for coming. It's always a pleasure. Hopefully we can do some collab OnlyFilmNoir and Grindhouse Institute posts for at least the Amazing Mr. X. I think that'd be a great one to post. There's a lot of cool visuals there.
I'm going to be doing one for each of these. So
perfect.
And then that'll also be a plug for like, hey, and you can listen to some cool dudes.
Listen to us spoil all the movies from the 40s.
Watch them first, please.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, thank you guys so much for having me back.
Thank you very much. To recap our show today, we watched The Seventh Victim, Nightmare Alley, and The Amazing Mr. X. And this was our horror film noir block as part of our spooky, haunted Halloween October. We need to come up with a name for our October scary films.
Shocktoberfest?
Shocktoberfest. There you go. Isn't that a name of a beer?
I don't know. It should be.
It is. It's the Humboldt Brewery one. That's
really?
Great one. I think so. I might be wrong.
Beat me to it. Yeah.
I might be wrong.
Next time, we are going to be doing Anthology 201, a sequel to our 101 of anthology horror films. This one's going to be Tales from the Crypt from 1972, Tales from the Dark Side, which some might call Creepshow 3, Tales from the Dark Side, and Trick or Treat, a fairly newer one. But this is going to be really excellent to take a look at the anthology films again, especially after watching these, because I feel like they've got the same kind of resolution and full circleness that these have as well.
Yeah, and they'll be pretty snackable. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I've never seen the British Tales from the Crypt or Trick or Treat, so we'll see what those have in store for us.
Excellent. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to subscribe and follow us on all the podcasts and social platforms at the Grindhouse Institute. And if you really want to give us a boost, check us out on Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It helps us to get noticed. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll be back next week.
Ciao.
Will you get out of here? I should have known you were that kind of...
Takes one to catch one.
Get out.